So now we're going to be speaking about charism and the real patrimonium, instituti to safeguard, and we want to share some canonical considerations on the topic.
Grazie. Grazie soprattutto agli
Thank you, the organizers, especially for giving me this opportunity to make this presentation on a topic that is of such importance for today's conference. So charism from the canonical perspective, so charism from the real patrimony of the institutes that needs to be safeguarded. Now, a few canonical considerations is what I would like to share with you. So now I would like to use the words of Pope Francis already 5 or 6 years ago, actually, in another meeting organized by the Congregation of Consecrated Life Institutes, the fidelity to the charism, infidelity to the charism, rethink your economy. So putting together already these two words, that is charism, and also the goods, that is the patrimony, the cultural goods. Charism. Charism means to donate, to be generous, to offer, to give freely, and then gratuitously, and then faithfully following this document. These are documents that come from God. The document is Missione Ecclesia. So it's an ecclesial goal. However, canon law, the code of canon law, never uses this word. It's never used the word charism in the code. And it's weird because it's given so much importance and there are so many norms regulating the institutes of consecrated life and apostolic life, but to never use this word charism. Instead, the code prefers to use or to define it as patrimonio instituti. That is to tell us that the true patrimony, the true heritage that we need to take care of, that we need to safeguard, is the charism itself. So my presentation wants to be split up into parts, into blocks. The first one tries to gather the characteristics of the charism based on the definitions given by the code, and then the other one, what is the implication and how this affects our goods, our temporal goods, and our patrimony. So first of all, let's look at the canonical aspects of the charism. The charism is a gift. It's a gift that has been received and has been offered freely to others by the founder or foundress. Now, we make a differentiation between the charism of the founder and from the founder. So the charism seen as a special gift from the Spirit, so a personal gift given to the founder, and the charism of the founder, which then turns into a foundational charism when it's being shared and when it's studied in depth as a patrimony, charismatic patrimony that can be passed down to others and that generates proximity and generates spiritual families. And this is how we end up having a patrimony, an institute patrimony, which is defined as follows in the code as the understanding and the projects of the founders, that is the initial intuition and their way of implementing it, connected with the nature of it, that is the founding element, connected with the spirit and the special way of following Christ, and also the special characteristics of the institute, as well as its traditions, that is the lifestyle that characterizes that institute and that has characterized the history of the institute and that has become over time part of this heritage, as it's been said in English often. The charism is always and also a gift recognized by the Church. Already consecrated life in itself and also the evangelical councils are gifts, special gifts that the Church has received. So those who profess the evangelical councils have a special link, a special bond with the church because they belong to the life and the holiness of the church. And this is where the general duties come. The duties of the church, that is, to interpret the councils, the evangelical councils, and to establish stable lifestyles of consecrated life or other. And this is the connection it has with the institutes in recognizing their charism, their specific charism, through the creation of an institute, the approval of it, the approval of its constitutions, and the accompaniment and in the development and in the moments of greater change. Now, this requires, on the side of the church, to respect the specificity, the charismatic specificity of that institution, but also it requires religious men and women to avoid for the charismatic reality to be perceived in a parallel way or differently from the ecclesial life and to become, as such, a parallel church. The charism is also a coded gift that is written in the constitutions and is renewed by the chapters. The charism is not just an abstract spiritual reality. It truly, it's been legislated and it becomes concrete through words in the constitutions in order to faithfully safeguard the identity and the vocation of each institute. And this is why is the general chapter not only to be responsible of safeguarding this heritage, but also to find the best way to renew it over time, overcoming the temptation of doing what we call charismatic archaeology, as Pope Francis would refer to, as to promote renovation, continuous renovation with the four faithfulness to the times, to Christ, to the gospel, to the human being, and to the church, and to the mission of the church in the world, and the faithfulness to the life of the institute and its objective. The charism is also a gift that is passed down through formation. Our novices have to be introduced to this new charism, and this is why they are called to be formed, heart and mind, according to the spirit of the religious men and women who have been formed themselves before that, to know the discipline, the history, and the life of the Institute in order to keep alive this charismatic identity in the members of today of that institution. And this requires us to look back and look at the journey of the past generations and what has kindled that flame, that charism, and has led to the creation of that institute, as well as the challenges and also the losses and the backlashes that there might have been. Now, this will allow them to be able to live their life much better and much in line with the spirit and the charism of the Institute. This gift is also lived out throughout the ecclesial mission of the members. And I hear you mention the Evangelicalium and Pope Francis, that is a clear sign of the authenticity of the charism and its ecclesiality, that is, its capacity of integrating itself in a harmonic way to the life of the holy people of God for the good of all. So the religious institutes have to somehow edify the church and have to strive for the church aim, that is, for the salvation of all. And this is in order to be faithful to the gift of the salvation that has been given to them, not only individually, but also to be shared. This is a gift to be shared with others as a gift that they offer out of love, as a real way of living out the gospel concretely. And here, once again, the call to live the gratuity of the gift with the fantasy and the creativity that charity allows. Last but not least, the shared gift with other members of the religious family. Usually, around each religious institute, there is a charismatic family surrounding it, which is much broader, much bigger. It's not only for some few members that is entrusted the task to safeguard this charism, because others also are participating of this charismatic identity and reality. Other members, such as the Third Order, that is lay, can also be part of the life of the religious institute, not only because they want to tend to Christian perfection, but also because they want to share the same mission of the apostolic life, the same mission of the apostolic life that the institute has as its own objective. And here I move on now to the second part of my presentation, that is the canonical implications and consequences of all that we have said until now. Now, the first thing, the first indication of the charism connected with the charism being a gift, this tells us how to live ecclesiality in the administration of our goods. Now, we have the ecclesiality of the charism, which entails that there is an ecclesiality of the goods that derives from the destination of the goods of the church and its own objectives. Now, this means that we need to open up to the global view and the global breadth of the church and its universal mission. And it requires us also to root ourselves in the concrete reality at the local level with its needs, the needs of the local church and the local works. So the goods of the institutes, they are ecclesial goods and are also legislated by the code, the canon law. And then sometimes we forget that there are norms and ecclesial legislation and codes that we need to follow and that we need to comply with in order to manage our goods, and not only the civil laws need to be complied. So this requires a continuous dialogue, an ecclesial dialogue, not only when it comes to establishing a community or suppressing or closing down a community or closing down a house or other kinds of issues, but there is a need for a real collaboration also in those moments in which there is a suppression, for example, of the works of that institute, so that the goods that we have there are ecclesial goods that actually remain and that still remain in the hands of the church, as Pope Francis shares with us and expresses. Now, the second part, that is the charism as a gift. So this is something that we can witness with our lives through poverty and charity. And here, once again, I use Pope Francis's words: the hypocrisy of those consecrated men and women who live as if they were rich men and women actually affect the church and all its members. Often the goods that we have can become a problem. Also for religious institutions, this can be the case. There are different issues and problems within the institutes, the religious institutes, when it comes to the management of our goods. But then also we have other problems that are connected with the outside world. And here we are called to favor, to safeguard, to express and to testify, to witness our collective poverty and our collective charity. That means not only to avoid any kind of luxury and any kind of accumulation of these goods, but also through the norms, we can state that we have made fraternity the main principle, the main goal of our institute. In a way, we are being requested to live fraternity without borders within our institutes. But then this is also an invitation to witness in a collective way to the world our charity. This is also something that Pope Francis has invited us more and more to live fraternal solidarity with the poor, to be at the service of others in a gratuitous way, to live, as he says, the restitution spirituality. That is to give back what has been given to us freely, to be placed at the service of our brothers and sisters, our life, our time, our goods, all that we have and that we use. The third implication is to rethink in a charismatic way the mission and the works. So once again, the Evangelii Gaudium invites us to rethink our objectives and our structures and to reconsider how to bring forward our works, which means, first of all, to be faithful to the charism through a real discernment, attentive to the voice of God and the poor of today, to the cry of the poor today, and also to be faithful faithful to the mission that we've been called to. That is to ensure some kind of social and ecclesial significity and an evangelical efficiency. And we do have the tools, right tools that are being identified and that are listed in this document on finances of the dicastery for on how to manage your finance and your for the religious institutions from a charismatic perspective, which shows a way of organizing the founding charismatic elements, and also from an administrative perspective. So here I would like to say a few words on these civil elements that are connected. That is, we need to establish clear rules for the management of those goods. Requires that sometimes we might have to consider that this heritage doesn't only belong to the religious women or men of that reality, or the church as a juridical person within that reality, but there are other things, other connections. We might have two entities that are connected to these goods, so we have to respect that if we are not the only ones that actually are the owners of those goods. Now, the fourth implication, that is, we need to form our members with a new sensibility, a new ecclesial and charismatic sensibility, that is, in the formation of all of our members, but also in the specific formation of our superiors and our economs or bursars and the laity who are called to help us, especially to know all the juridical and economical elements that need to be known, but also with the lay who are collaborating with us. It's important for them to understand our charism, the charism with which they are collaborating while doing their work. I carry on. So to broaden the horizons of the charism through effective collaboration with others and with other agents. And this is inviting us to live the sensus ecclesiae, as the Pope says. That is to do together, to network, to create networks, to share. And this is an invitation that also this Congress is offering and is inviting us to do it through this charismatic dialogue, not only within a religious institute, but also to open up to the religious family and go even beyond that, even to be in communion with other institutions that have some kind of affinity to our charism and when it comes to our works. Now, it's up to you how to do that. And last but not least, to face the situation of the abuses when it comes to heritage. The new book, the sixth book of the new code from 1983, clearly states and highlights the main crimes when it comes to financial management and goods management. Our superiors must know about these crimes and know how to react, and also to understand which are the channels they need to carry out and to implement, and also know how the persons that we entrust our goods to know how to manage those goods and do it properly, complying with the laws. Now, the superiors and religious men and women and the bursars need to know that they are only stewards, only administrators of those goods. So that's all they're doing for a little while, for some time, those goods that have been entrusted to them. Now, this is something that they have to carry out in the name of the church, just as a good father does, a good family man does. And they also have to face those crimes when they happen in the financial reality, going through the different channels when it comes to the canon law, but also maybe before civil courts if needed. And I conclude with three conclusions. Now, after having identified these different ways of receiving the gift and how they affect the management of our goods, we have first of all to remember how the charism, just as the charism, also our goods, our heritage and our cultural and patrimonial goods of the institutes are being entrusted to us, and our gift that God has given us. And this is why we have to use it properly. We need to know how to be able to safeguard them and also to pass them down. And we need to do that keeping in mind the needs of the universal church, of the local church, and the local communities. But then this has to go beyond the temporal goods issue or the intangible goods, because in our experience, it's good to know, to be experienced, to be informed, because these goods are intangible goods that need to be protected, safeguarded, that need to be brought forward, that have to be passed down to the next generations. And last but not least, the charism allows religious men and women to look at things, to look at those goods with the gaze of God, and that is to look with different eyes, capable of looking at things that others might not see. So, in our charismatic mission, especially when it comes to the use of the patrimonial goods and cultural goods, we're also called to bring a change in our times, in our societies, from a social, spiritual, human, and financial and civil change. And I wish you all this change also in your personal religious life. Thank you for listening.